So what I'd now like to do is ask Alex up, and Alex will talk you through one of those real operational use cases about how we're leveraging some of this stuff as part of the platform and with the machine learning. So thank you, and let's hear it for Alex.
Thank you, Peter. So that was really exciting, because when I see the stuff that's coming out in the platform, I get really excited. But I also have the pleasure of actually, going out and making sure that customers are starting to deploy it as well. So in terms of what's come out in Jakarta, what I'm going to show you is really some examples of what Pete was covering. My job is I cover the IT operations practice, and so I get all the fun things. I get the CMDB conversations, I get the SIAM conversations, I get to have conversations around automation and data. So I get really quite excited to hear that data gathering is getting easier and that we're starting to leverage that to create real customer value. So I'm going to show you some examples of what we've actually shipped today within my BU. And we're going to start seeing this more and more in other BUs as well, but I've been fortunate enough to have some of these use cases actually be delivered today. So one of the things that I'm really conscious of when I have a conversation with a customer is really this concept of kind of cost, looking at all of the risk side of things. So are we doing the right governance, but tempering that with all of the value and velocity that people want from that customer experience. So what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, IT can be quite draconian in terms of the governance and getting the right data collection, but none of it really means anything if we're not providing our customers with better experiences. So one of the things that I'm going to cover now is all around what we call the outage experience application. So this is a persona-driven UI that's mobile. I'm going to cover that in a minute. But the goal is all about enabling the guys that are on the front line that need to improve customer experience around services. So typically the use case for it is, I'm coming into the office, I'm going to be on that major incident call with all my friends to see what outages happened over the weekend and how are services performing and where do I need to focus. Traditionally there's like a bit of a war room type scenario where everyone jumps on a bridge and they go through the outages of the weekend to work out, right, what's up, what's down, what do I need to focus on, and potentially what sits within my wheelhouse. So whether I'm the head of networking, or I'm the duty manager, or I'm the change manager, what's happened and what do we need to do to fix it. So, and all of these are actually available to you to go and try. So that's important. So on your mobile phones, if you type in www.snexperiences.com, you can go and actually try these on your mobile phone today. There's about 8 of them, and there's a little bit of a story around each one. And so I'm looking at the outage experience one now. Now these are things that we can actually deploy today. So we have a team that actually can show them to you. They can then build a use case for you and have these actually deployed out in your estate. Now, what I want to show with this one is really how we get the data to deliver this UI and where the capability sits. So what we just saw was how we predict failures using machine learning. Well, the next parts I'm going to show is how we get the business impact, how we then identify the root cause, and then how we do the remediation automatically. So it's starting to kick off on some of the things that Pete showed you, but these are real life use cases around resolving a real outage based on predictive analysis, which I think is quite exciting. And then from there, we're, from a mobile device, effectively able to actually roll back the issue. So we're predicting it, we're providing context, we're understanding impact in terms of costs, we're identifying what the issue is, and the machine learning is telling us, based on a confidence level, what we should fix.
You said it's rolling back. Is that platform doing a rollback or a technician?
So, in this use case, what we've actually seen it do is it's gone out and it's had a look at, and I'm going to deep dive into how we do that in a minute. It's based on a confidence score of what we think the likely root cause of an issue is. In this case, then we have a set of remediation activities, which are workflow based, which can then be assessed in terms of which is the right one that we should choose. So I'm going to cover this in a bit more detail, but on the rollback use case, it would be a remediation workflow that's built into the change, so we can actually automate a lot of things within the change based on workflow, and here we can just do the reverse to actually roll it back.
Okay, so being told how to do
Correct. So there's actually a workflow remediation option that can be chosen. Another one might be reboot a server. Another one might be, fail over to another service.
Okay.
So we can make this as manual or as automatic as we're able to in terms of some of those menial tasks. All right. So we talked about some of the data, and we talked a little bit about some of the data that we're collecting in terms of events. So one of the things that ServiceNow doesn't do today is monitor. But what we do love is monitoring data. So I was presenting earlier this week with the App Dynamics guys. We've done similar events with Splunk. We like SolarWinds. We're a Microsoft partner as well in terms of things like SCOM. And what we do is we partner with these guys because they give us really good event data. And you can go and look at all of their different websites or on our portal, and you'll see that we've got connectors, supported connectors that we've either supported or that they've provided so that they can get their data into our platform. So why is that data so important to us? Well, as far as they're concerned, effectively they're showing you there's an issue, and they're putting it up on a big screen, and everyone can see, oh my God, internet banking's down, or this portal's down, or this service is down, or SAP's down. But what we do is we take that data and we make it actionable. And we're able to also look at all the different sources of data from all the different providers and bring it together so that we understand, what does that mean? We can interpret it based on some of the technology that we just covered. These are some of the screens that we're shipping today based on the use case that Pete covered in terms of that sort of predictive learning. So here's an anomaly heat map where we can see issues. So we're using sort of exception-based reporting to identify exactly what's gone wrong. We're able to look at these baselines based on all of the different configuration items in the service, and we can bring them together to get a true picture of the service itself. And finally, we're able to actually do this anomaly detection. And again, this is all shipped in Jakarta. One of the things that I'm going to cover now is how do we get the context? So it's great that we're getting the telemetry or the events, but then how do we actually understand, what they mean? What do they mean in terms of getting the underlying components and stringing it together? So what we're seeing here is effectively what Discovery would provide, and it's all of the different CIs within a particular part of your technology and the dependencies between each of them. So what we're seeing here are VMs linking to ESX hosts, and really the dependencies between them, so that when one of these components fails, we can understand what the knock-on effect on other components. For example, with say an ESX host fails, what's the impact on the VMs that sit on it? And that's important, and this can apply to the network, it can apply to storage, and it's very much what we call a technical service map. So that's sort of bottom up. Now this stuff isn't new, it's been around for probably about a decade, potentially longer, so it's pretty common to see this kind of technology out there. What we do is we then take it a step further, and we do what we call top-down service mapping. So we're able to combine a top-down approach to all of this underlying bits and bytes and technology that we see in the infrastructure. So what do we mean when we say top-down? So what we're seeing at the top is what we call an entry point. So that could be a URL, it's the front end of a service, and effectively it's very much an end user view. And what we're doing is we're taking that, traversing down into the different parts of the service to understand what is the user journey and how all of these different parts are interrelated to be able to ensure that that service is available, healthy, that you're able to get a good experience when you use it. And what we're seeing down the bottom is actually linking all the technical pieces that we saw before up to the service map. Traditionally, what customers, when we actually deploy this, find out very quickly is they get a view of all the load balances, and they get things like authentication services, which traditionally is sitting on like service maps hidden somewhere, within SharePoint often, and that information is really, really important when you're trying to diagnose an issue. So that's been like the missing link. Then what we're able to do is we're able to provide this view, and that's that business impact. We can see when something's gone wrong, and the telemetry is telling us that something's about to go wrong, what are we actually impacting? And what is it from a logical perspective? So what does it actually mean when that component goes down? At the end of the day, it's a business service that people are consuming. It could be linked to revenue. It could be something that, if there's a bottleneck, might cause a massive business issue or organizational issue. And I've seen everything from prison doors malfunctioning through to internet banking being down or slow, or a subset of users being impacted. And without that sort of context, how do you know what you're going to work on, and how do you prioritize your effort? So that's the second piece of that user experience, the business context. Then what we're able to do is we can bring it all together. So what we're seeing is the alerts coming in, and we can start to see some other things based on data on the platform. For example, there's been some changes. We've got this change timeline at the top that tells us when the service was healthy and when it suddenly become unhealthy and what's happened to